let's talk about Sony and Square Enix. Okay, so apparently Sony sold off like about what is it, 9,520 shares of their stock, I guess, in Square Enix. What does this mean really? To the common person, what does this mean for both companies? I mean, I don't know necessarily this means much to us. Not looking at it from a business perspective, maybe they're just kind of moving away from Sony and maybe not doing as many partnerships or whatnot. A little hard to tell, especially after last year's E3 showing when they showed off Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3 or whatnot. But I don't know. How do you guys interpret this, Rich? What do you think of what's going on over there?
I don't know what is going on over there. Many people will try to read into this and say, well, does this mean that the Final Fantasy games were not going to be exclusive? Well, we already knew that that wasn't the case because Final Fantasy 15 is also coming to Xbox. So I'm not 100% certain what this would do for them. I could think that yes, if it's going to save money, well, yeah, it's a smart move because that money should be invested back into making games for the PlayStation 4. I think when they announced that, that project, well, I forget the name of it, the headset.
Project Morpheus, the Oculus PlayStation equivalent of the Oculus Rift.
That's it. Yes, when they made that announcement, it was a cool device. It looked promising, but the question everybody wants to know is where are the games? So if they take that money away from these shares, I will hope they will invest it back into making games. Because if I am Sony and I'm looking at my competition in Microsoft, now that Phil Spencer is taking over Xbox, everyone knows that this guy is very game savvy. He's into games. He's already promised that games will be the focus moving forward. So Sony need to have that same focus, I would say. Not try to do everything, but they need to focus specifically on games. PlayStation 4 had a great game with Infamous, but yes, we need to see more, and I would expect E3 to be huge. So we'll see what happens.
Well, with this, I think, well, allegedly, because Sony's financial numbers are coming out next month, they're due to come out, and a lot of people are speculating over whether they did this to boost their numbers, basically, because how much are they getting back from this? Like 4 million or something, maybe more. So yeah, so I think that might be a reason, and also they probably lost faith in Square Enix a little bit because they did decide to go multi-platform with Final Fantasy. But see, my concern now is that Microsoft, we know how desperate Microsoft are. Sorry, Ed. But they could put in a lot of money in Square Enix now and try and persuade them to do some exclusives or maybe even timed exclusives or something. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Microsoft take some sort of action here or take advantage of this move from Sony.
Well, I will hope not, because they need to focus on actually making games and not the third-party stuff. I know they said before. Spencer said in a recent interview that he regrets that there was so much money spent on the third-party deals with Titanfall. So I will hope that they will focus more specifically on making games for the console, but of course, that's not going to stop them from having the extra DLC packs before that type of stuff. But
it's still going to be fruitful for them, at least, in regards to that Titanfall deal with how much money they spent with that.
Yeah. Exactly.
The thing is, like, Microsoft have been desperate to get the Japanese market for years. Like they've always been trying to invest in JRPGs and stuff like that. So if they see an opportunity like that, then they're gonna go for it. Because
look at it this way also, because recently Square Enix was saying how they need to refocus a little bit and kind of gear more towards making games kind of like Bravely Default, since people want their JRPG fix. And if they're going with that mentality, and Microsoft needs to kind of, gauge that Japanese market a little bit better than what they've done in the past, maybe it might prove like, as a good opportunity for them, like you said. It might work.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, though, Ed, let me ask you, okay, Square Enix, Sony, shares, what's up?
Yeah, I really don't know much about this, but I mean, maybe Sony doesn't seem like they would do this out of nowhere, for no reason. they must know something we don't. I mean, Square Enix kind of, I mean, I guess in their own opinion, they feel like Tomb Raider maybe wasn't the biggest success uh, that it should have been or that they could have had. And then, I mean, what's next in the pipeline for Square Enix? There's that I know of nothing.
You know something? That brings up a good point. With the news of Square Enix kind of refocusing and saying that they're going to start making and kind of going back to basics a little bit with JRPGs, and obviously JRPGs, Japanese role playing games, is very big in Japan. Obviously whatnot. And keep in mind, Microsoft caters more to Western developers, or they have a much more Western oriented library of games. Maybe that's like well, maybe not Microsoft, but Sony a little bit, in the sense, even though Sony's big like thing is in Japan or whatnot. Or better yet, no, actually, I think I'm a little bit off base with this. Maybe there's maybe some stuff going on that we don't know about, like what Ed said. And maybe there's just something up.
Well, I hope Square is still in good shape because it will hurt my heart if anything happens to that company, like and they go out of business or whatever.
I think they're fine. I think they're fine. I don't know if it's really so much that they're in bad shape that they're doing this. Maybe it's just Sony trying to get resources. Maybe more resources towards other games, like what you guys said.
Well, here's what I say. I think Final Fantasy 15, Kingdom Hearts 3, they will be totally fine. But
especially Kingdom Hearts 3. They are going to make bank with that big time. I think also though, as far as like philosophically and also where their motivation's going, I think Final Fantasy 15 is going to be the game that kind of changes up stuff for that franchise and steers it much more in the right direction than what Final Fantasy 13 did, and also 14 did in the same regard.